Ryan Martin is next with sports.
Plus, 6 Terps are scoring with the NFL. More to come on that.
Yeah, Isaiah, Jordan, a busy weekend for sports, as you mentioned. We just heard from Joey Bark in the Capitol talking about that new Commander Stadium. We'll talk to Joey and dive into some more sports coming up next on CNS TV.
Welcome back to CNS. Ryan Martin joins us now with sports for updates on playoffs, drafts, and stadiums.
Yeah, Ryan, a stadium switch-up is in the Commanders' future. What's that all about?
Jordan, you're exactly right. There's been talks about the Commanders moving back to D.C. for a while, and it could finally be happening. We're just a few days removed from what many sports fans see as the best sports weekend of the year. It's a few days span filled with big NHL playoff games, picks upon picks of the NFL draft, and now a potential new multi-billion-dollar stadium in the nation's capital. Let's get into it. Well, we can start with maybe the biggest offseason news amidst a busy few months for the Washington Commanders. You've heard all about it already. But the NFL's new golden child in Washington, D.C. announced a deal to build a $3.7 billion football stadium. That's the single largest private investment in D.C.'s history. The plans are to build a new roofed 65,000-seat stadium that would host the Commanders as early as the 2030 season. The deal is set to cost the Commanders $2.7 billion, with D.C. taxpayers originally slated to pay $500 million towards stadium infrastructure, but that number is expected to top $1 billion for taxpayers when factoring in new parking, facilities, and electric infrastructure. CNS's Joey Bark has been on the story all day today. Joey, we know D.C. Council still has to approve this, but some people are ready to call this a done deal.
Well, Ryan, it's not a done deal just yet. Ryan, look, if I bought my hometown team and I was closer in 3 years to doing something that the last ownership group couldn't do in 30, I'd be pulling out all the stops, just like Josh Harris is right now in conjunction with Muriel Bowser. But we'll see what happens. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks again, Joey Bark, reporting live from D.C. on this huge announcement. Now, sticking in the NFL, where 257 players heard their name called in this past weekend's NFL draft. And out of those selections, 6 players were drafted from the University of Maryland, setting a program record since the modern draft era began in 1986. The Terps had the 4th most picks out of any Big Ten school and were tied for the 11th most picks by a school nationally. Ty Felton, Ruben Hippolyte, Jordan Phillips, Dante Trader Jr., Caden Prather, Tommy King-Bisote. That's a whole mouthful of 6 Terps that were selected between the 3rd and 7th round. So let's break it all down for you. Wide receiver Ty Felton went to the Minnesota Vikings as the first Terp picked and final selection of day 2. You see here, Felton was scouted heavily by a Vikings wide receiver coach and former NFL star player Keenan McCardell. The two were there at their pro day, and there's Felton. And when you look at the next Terp taken, it was linebacker Ruben Hippolyte, who had to wait less than a full round later before a different NFC North team came calling, the Bears picking him in the 4th round. As the 132nd overall selection, Hippolyte became the first player drafted who was not at this past March's Combine. Into the 5th round now, where a pair of Hippolyte's defensive teammates get drafted to the same team. Jordan Phillips got picked by the Miami Dolphins at 132. 12 picks later, Dante Trader Jr. found out he'll be joining Phillips in South Beach. Phillips' reaction to hearing that Trader got picked by the Finns is what the NFL draft is truly all about.
Yeah! I want to talk about that boy! Yo! I want to talk about, that boy Trader! Yo! We back together now. Yo! Hey, get that on TV right there. Hey, get my boy on TV, huh?
Phillips seems just a little bit excited there. His defensive teammate Tommy King-Bisote will be moving as far as the Lone Star State, but locally, the Commanders and Baltimore Ravens were busy themselves with their own draft classes. In terms of getting it in the DMV up in Baltimore as well, here's what you need to know about Washington and Baltimore's draft. The Washington Commanders only had 5 picks, but valued building around reigning Offensive Rookie of the Year Jaden Daniels early and often. First-round offensive tackle Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon could protect Daniels for the next decade plus, while Virginia Tech's Jalen Lane gives Daniels a speedy slot target who should be Washington's top option as a returner on special teams. Meanwhile, up I-95, the Baltimore Ravens took a different approach after losing in last year's divisional round to the Buffalo Bills. Baltimore went all defense at the top, drafting Georgia safety Malachi Starks 27th overall and potentially stealing Marshall edge Mike Green midway through the 2nd round. Starks was a 2-time first-team All-SEC selection by playing all over the Bulldogs' defense, While Green was a projected first-round pick out of Marshall, but 2 outstanding sexual assault allegations against Green made him slide down draft boards everywhere. Green's denied both allegations. And finally, Isaiah, Jordan, we have a huge game taking place at Capital One Arena just 24 hours from now. The Washington Capitals could advance to the second round of this year's NHL playoffs, holding a 3-1 series lead over the Montreal Canadiens ahead of tomorrow night's Game 5. First puck drop is set for 7 p.m. tomorrow. And if the Caps can win just one of the potentially 3 more playoff games to go, then Washington will earn its first playoff series win since 2018, 7 years ago, and that was the year the Capitals won their lone Stanley Cup championship. So Isaiah, Jordan, that's a lot to go off of. A busy week of sports, but should be a busier day even tomorrow with the Capitals potentially moving on to round 2 of the NHL playoffs. Good time to be a sports fan here in the DMV.
Good time indeed. Listen, I got a chance to look at the draft, and busy indeed. Thank you, Ryan.